My name is Suzanne, and I'm 57 years old. The words still echo in my mind. You're not my real mother. My 16-year-old daughter, Amanda, screamed those words straight into my face, her eyes burning with rage. It felt like a knife twisting in my heart. For 20 years, I had raised her since she was 6 months old, loved her with every fiber of my being. But in that moment, everything changed. I had no idea that within days, both our lives would be turned upside down. Before I continue with my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you want to hear more stories about the unexpected challenges of motherhood and how we can overcome them together. I still remember the day I first held Amanda in my arms. It was a crisp autumn morning, and the leaves outside the adoption center were painted in brilliant shades of red and orange. I was 37, then single and successful in my career as a financial advisor, but there was always something missing in my life. After years of failed relationships and discovering I couldn't have biological children, I made the decision that would forever change my life. I wanted to be a mother, and I didn't need a partner to make that dream come true. The adoption process was rigorous. For months, I filled out paperwork, sat through interviews, endured home inspections, and opened every aspect of my life to scrutiny. Background checks, financial stability assessments, character references from friends, family, and colleagues. Every detail of my existence was examined under a microscope. But I persevered because somewhere out there I knew my child was waiting. When I first walked into the room at Little Angels Adoption Center and saw Amanda, something inside me just knew. She was tiny, only 6 months old, with wisps of dark hair and the most curious brown eyes I'd ever seen. The social worker, Mrs. Patterson, placed her in my arms, and Amanda looked up at me and smiled. Not just any smile, but one that lit up her entire face. In that moment, we connected. She didn't know it yet, but we were meant to find each other. "She's quite the charmer," Miss Patterson said, watching our interaction. "She's been here since she was 3 days old. Birth mother was very young, couldn't provide for her." I barely heard the words. I was lost in Amanda's eyes, making silent promises that I would always protect her, always love her, always be there for her. The following weeks were a blur of final approvals, temporary custody arrangements, and preparing my home. 3 months later, the adoption was finalized in court, and Amanda was officially my daughter. The early years were everything I had dreamed of, and more. Amanda was a happy child, always laughing, always curious about the world around her. Her first word was "mama," which made me cry tears of joy. Her first steps were toward me, arms outstretched, face beaming with pride. Every milestone was a celebration, every moment precious. I worked hard to provide the best life possible for us. My career in financial advising was demanding, but rewarding. I arranged my schedule to maximize our time together, often working late after Amanda was asleep, to ensure I could attend her school events and activities. We lived in a cozy 3-bedroom house in a quiet suburb with good schools. Amanda's room was painted soft pink at her request, with butterfly decals on the walls and a canopy bed that made her feel like a princess. Our backyard became a magical place for her, with a swing set, a sandbox, and later a treehouse that became her special retreat. Weekends were sacred. We would bake cookies, visit museums, have picnics in the park, and read stories together before bedtime. Every summer, we took trips to the beach, building sandcastles and collecting seashells that still line the windowsills of our home. I was always honest with Amanda about her adoption. From an early age, I explained in simple terms that she grew in another woman's tummy, but she grew in my heart. As she got older, I shared more details appropriate to her age, always emphasizing how special she was and how much I had wanted her. I kept a memory box with the few items we had from her birth mother, a letter explaining the difficult decision, and photos documenting our journey together. "Will I ever meet my real mother?" Amanda asked me once when she was 7. "I'm your real mother," I explained gently. "But the woman who gave birth to you made a brave choice because she wanted you to have opportunities she couldn't provide. If you want to meet her someday when you're older, I'll help you try to find her." That seemed to satisfy her then. She nodded thoughtfully before asking if we could make ice cream sundaes, the question apparently resolved in her young mind. Through elementary school, Amanda thrived. She was bright, made friends easily, and showed talent in art and science. Teachers praised her creativity and enthusiasm for learning. She joined the Girl Scouts, played soccer, took piano lessons. Our home was filled with laughter, crayon drawings taped to the refrigerator, and the constant hum of childhood energy. I thought I was prepared for the challenges of raising a daughter. I read parenting books, joined support groups for single and adoptive parents, and built a network of friends who were also raising children. We had our occasional disagreements, of course, but nothing major. When Amanda was upset, we talked things through. When she made mistakes, we found solutions together. For 12 wonderful years, our life together unfolded like a beautiful story. I watched my little girl grow taller, smarter, more independent every day. I taught her to ride a bike, to swim, to stand up for herself. I kissed scraped knees, chased away monsters under the bed, and celebrated every achievement, big and small. But nothing in those parenting books prepared me for what would happen when my sweet little girl became a teenager. Looking back, I realize now that the storm had been brewing for months, maybe even years, before it finally broke over our heads with devastating force. The changes were subtle at first. Amanda turned 13, and almost overnight it seemed her priorities shifted. The girl who once couldn't wait to tell me about her day at school began answering my questions with shrugs and one-word responses. The child who once cuddled with me on the couch during movie nights now preferred to text her friends or watch videos alone in her room. "It's normal," my friend Diane assured me. She had 2 older children and had weathered the teenage years already. They all go through this phase. Give her space, but keep the lines of communication open. I tried to follow this advice, telling myself that this was just part of growing up. Amanda was establishing her independence, finding her identity separate from mine. But it was hard not to feel a growing distance between us, a chasm I didn't know how to bridge. Things escalated when Amanda started high school. She tested into Westlake Academy, a prestigious school across town with excellent academic programs. I was proud of her accomplishment, but soon realized the social dynamics there were different from her previous school. Many of the students came from wealthy families with large homes, luxury cars, and expensive vacations. Our comfortable but modest lifestyle suddenly seemed inadequate in Amanda's eyes. "Mom, everyone at school has the new iPhone," she complained one day. "My phone is embarrassing." "Your phone works perfectly fine," I replied. "It's only a year old." "But it doesn't have the best camera and everyone notices." Jenna laughed at me yesterday when I tried to take a group photo and it came out blurry. These conversations became more frequent. Designer clothes, expensive makeup, weekend trips to the mall. Amanda's wishes grew more extravagant as she tried to keep up with her new peer group. I wanted her to fit in to feel confident, but I also wanted to teach her about financial responsibility and the difference between needs and wants. "We can look at a new phone when it's time to upgrade our plan." I compromised, "And we can get a few new outfits for school, but within our budget." Amanda rolled her eyes. "You don't understand what it's like. Everyone judges you on what you have. True friends will like you for who you are, not what you wear or which phone you use." I said, knowing, even as the words left my mouth, how cliché they sounded. "That's such a mom thing to say," she muttered, walking away. Her new friends were a constant presence, at least in conversation and through social media. There was Jenna, whose parents both worked as surgeons and who had her own credit card at 15. Taylor, who vacationed in Europe every summer and wore only designer labels. And Zach, the son of a local real estate developer who drove a brand new car his parents had given him for his 16th birthday. I tried to get to know these friends, inviting them over for dinner or movie nights, offering to drive them to the mall or school events. Some came, but the interactions were awkward. I could see them looking around our home, making silent comparisons to their own more luxurious surroundings. Amanda seemed embarrassed, quickly ushering them to her room and closing the door. Our disagreements grew more frequent and intense. Curfews became battlegrounds. Household chores went undone despite reminders. Homework was rushed through or neglected until the last minute. When I tried to discuss these issues, Amanda accused me of not trusting her or treating her like a baby. "None of my friends have these stupid rules," she would say. "Their parents trust them." "Trust is earned," I would counter. "Show me you can handle responsibility and you'll get more freedom." Despite the tension, I still saw glimpses of my sweet girl. When she wasn't trying to impress her friends, Amanda could still be thoughtful and kind. She remembered my birthday with a handmade card that made me tear up. She still asked for advice on school projects, and sometimes late at night when her guard was down, she would sit on the edge of my bed and talk to me about her dreams for the future. For her 16th birthday, I saved up and bought Amanda a used car. It wasn't new or flashy, a 5-year-old Honda Civic with reasonable mileage, but it was safe and reliable. I added her to my insurance policy, which wasn't cheap, and we established clear rules about driving privileges. No phone use while driving, No passengers for the first 6 months. Always text when arriving at a destination. Never drive after drinking alcohol, call me instead. No questions asked. This is your responsibility now, I told her as I handed over the keys. Show me you can handle it. Amanda was thrilled, despite the car not being as impressive as what some of her friends drove. For a few weeks, she followed all the rules, came home on time, and even helped around the house without being asked. I dared to hope we had turned a corner, but the respite was short-lived. Gradually, the old patterns returned. Amanda stayed out later and later, offering vague explanations about where she'd been. Her grades, once excellent, began to slip. She became defensive when I asked questions, accusing me of not trusting her. I noticed she started spending time with a different group of friends, ones she never brought home or introduced me to. I'm just worried about you, I told her during one particularly tense standoff. I want to know you're safe. I'm not a child anymore, she snapped. Stop treating me like one. I wanted to give her independence, but I also needed to be her parent, not her friend. The balance was so difficult to find. I second-guessed every decision, torn between setting boundaries and giving her room to grow. Was I being too strict or not strict enough? Was this normal teenage rebellion or something more concerning? Through it all, I tried to maintain our connection, suggesting activities we used to enjoy together, asking about her interests, attempting to understand her world. Most of my efforts were met with indifference or irritation. The more I reached out, the more she pulled away. But I kept trying because that's what mothers do. We keep trying, keep loving, keep hoping, even when our hearts are breaking a little more each day. I had no idea then just how much worse things would get, or that a single heated moment would shatter the illusion that we were just going through a rough patch. The truth was far more alarming than I had allowed myself to believe. It was a Friday night in October when everything came to a head. Amanda had permission to go to a movie with friends and had agreed to be home by 11:30. By midnight, she still wasn't home and my texts went unanswered. By 12:30, I was pacing the living room, alternating between worry and anger, calling her phone repeatedly, only to be sent straight to voicemail. At 12:45, I heard the front door open. Amanda tried to slip in quietly, but I was waiting in the kitchen. Where have you been? I asked, my voice tight with tension. I've been texting and calling for over an hour. The movie ran late, she mumbled, not meeting my eyes. My phone died. That's when I noticed. Her movements were slightly uncoordinated, her words just a bit slurred, and there was an unmistakable smell of alcohol about her. Have you been drinking? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Of course not. She said too quickly, then tried to push past me toward the stairs. I stepped in front of her. Amanda, I can smell it on you, and you've been driving. Do you have any idea how dangerous that is? How many lives you put at risk, including your own? I had like one beer hours ago, it's not a big deal, she said, rolling her eyes. Everyone does it. I don't care what everyone does. You're 16 years old. It's illegal for you to drink, and it's illegal for anyone to drive after drinking. You could have been arrested, or worse, you could have had an accident. Well, nothing happened, so stop overreacting. Her voice was rising now. This isn't overreacting. This is me being a responsible parent. Give me your car keys, now. What? No way. Amanda clutched her purse tighter. This isn't a negotiation. You broke our agreement. You drank alcohol and then drove. You've lost your driving privileges until you can show me you understand the seriousness of what you did. You can't do that. I need my car. How am I supposed to get to school, to see my friends? You should have thought about that before you made such a reckless decision. I'll drive you to school, or you can take the bus, like you did before you had a car. Amanda's face contorted with anger. All my friends' parents let them drive after parties. Their parents are cool about it. Why do you have to be such a control freak? Because I'm your mother, and my job is to keep you safe, not to be cool or popular, I said firmly. Now hand over the keys. Amanda's eyes narrowed, and in them, I saw a flash of cold calculation that chilled me. Yeah, right. You're not my real mother. You can't tell me what to do. The words hung in the air between us. In all our arguments, through all the teenage drama, she had never gone there. never used my deepest vulnerability as a weapon against me. I felt like I'd been physically struck. My heart seemed to stop for a moment, then resumed beating with a painful thud. I couldn't speak, couldn't move, could only stare at her as the pain of those words washed through me. Amanda seemed briefly shocked by what she'd said, a flicker of regret crossing her face. But then her expression hardened again. She slapped her car keys onto the kitchen counter with such force that they skidded across the surface and fell to the floor. Happy now, she spat, then pushed past me and stormed up the stairs. A moment later, her bedroom door slammed with a force that shook the walls. I stood frozen in this kitchen, tears streaming down my face. 20 years of love and sacrifice, of midnight fevers and school plays, of birthday cakes and bedtime stories reduced to nothing with 8 cruel words. You're not my real mother. As if the years of bandaging scraped knees, braiding hair, checking homework, and singing lullabies counted for nothing. As if love was determined by biology alone. I sank into a kitchen chair, my legs suddenly unable to support me. The house was quiet now except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of music starting up in Amanda's room, the volume deliberately, defiantly high. Through my tears, I looked around our kitchen. Amanda's kindergarten artwork still hung on the refrigerator, preserved in its childish innocence. The height chart on the wall by the pantry marked her growth from a toddler to a teenager. The mug she had made me for Mother's Day in 3rd grade sat on the counter, chipped but treasured. So many memories in this room alone. Amanda learning to bake cookies, standing on a stool to reach the counter. Amanda missing her 2 front teeth, proudly showing me a good grade on a spelling test. Amanda and I dancing around the kitchen to silly songs while making pancakes on Saturday mornings. Where had that little girl gone? And how had we arrived at this painful place? I wiped my eyes and picked up the car keys from the floor. This wasn't just about tonight's curfew violation or the drinking. Something deeper was wrong, and I needed to find out what it was before I lost my daughter completely. As I finally went to bed in the early hours of the morning, sleep eluded me. I stared at the ceiling, replaying our argument and all the small changes I had observed in Amanda over recent months. The secretiveness, the mood swings, the new friends I never met, the dropping grades, the growing distance between us. I had attributed it all to normal teenage angst, but what if it was something more? What if I had been blind to something serious happening right under my nose? The thought terrified me, but I knew that tomorrow I needed to start looking for answers. The next morning, Amanda left for school without saying goodbye. I heard her moving around upstairs, the shower running, drawers opening and closing, then footsteps on the stairs and the front door slamming shut. I sat at the kitchen table with my untouched coffee, listening to the silence she left behind. I had called in sick to work something I rarely did. But today, I couldn't focus on client portfolios and investment strategies. Today, I needed to understand what was happening with my daughter. After ensuring Amanda had actually gone to school, I reluctantly decided to do something I had never done before, something that went against my beliefs about respecting her privacy. I went to her room. The space that had once been so open to me now felt like foreign territory. Posters of bands I didn't recognize covered walls that used to display her artwork. Clothes were strewn across the floor, makeup scattered across the dresser. It looked like the room of a stranger. I sat on her bed feeling like an intruder. Was this the right thing to do? Was I violating her trust? But then I remembered her glassy eyes, the smell of alcohol, the cruel words she had hurled at me. This wasn't about snooping. It was about keeping her safe. I started with her desk where her laptop sat closed. Next to it was a stack of mail, mostly college brochures she had requested planning ahead for applications next year. Beneath those, I found several unopened envelopes from Westlake Academy. My stomach tightened as I opened them. Academic warnings, notifications of missed assignments, a letter requesting a parent-teacher conference to discuss Amanda's concerning academic decline and attendance issues, all addressed to me, all apparently intercepted before I could see them. Moving to her dresser, I checked the usual hiding spots teenagers use. Under the sock drawer, I found a small notebook. Inside were lists of phone numbers without names, cryptic notes about times and places, and what looked like a tally of money owed with only initials to identify the debtors or creditors. In her closet behind a row of shoes, I discovered a small box containing several empty beer cans, a half-empty bottle of vodka, and something that made my blood run cold, a small plastic bag with what appeared to be marijuana. My hands were shaking now. This was worse than I had imagined, but I needed to know the full extent of what I was dealing with, so I continued my search. Under her mattress, I found her phone charger explaining why her phone had died so conveniently last night. And in her backpack, hidden in a zippered compartment, was my credit card, the one I thought I had misplaced 2 weeks ago. I sat back down on the bed, trying to process everything I had discovered. Then I remembered her laptop. I opened it, expecting to find it password protected, but it opened right to her desktop. Either she didn't expect me to check it, or she had left in too much of a hurry to lock it. What I found there devastated me even further. Social media messages revealed plans for a party at our house while I was scheduled to be away on a business trip the following weekend. Dozens of people had been invited. Someone named Jake, who I had never heard of, was bringing alcohol and drugs. I searched for more information about Jake and discovered he was 19, a high school dropout with a public profile full of party photos, drug references, and crude jokes. In pictures with Amanda, they were clearly more than friends. She was sitting on his lap in one image, kissing him in another. In most of the photos, she was holding some kind of alcoholic drink, wearing clothes. I had never seen clothes that were far more revealing than anything I would have allowed. There were text message screenshots showing conversations with friends where Amanda mocked me, called me controlling and clueless, laughed about how easy it was to lie to me. She complained about living in our crappy house and having to drive an embarrassing car. She told someone she couldn't wait to turn 18 and get away from my fake mom and her boring life. The email account on her computer showed more school communications, including notices about unexcused absences, missed tests, and failing grades in multiple subjects. There were forged notes with my signature excusing these absences. According to these records, Amanda was in danger of failing the semester in several subjects. Finally, I checked our bank accounts and credit card statements online. What I found confirmed my suspicions about my misplaced credit card. Over the past month, there had been numerous charges at clothing stores, restaurants, and online retailers that I hadn't made. The total came to over $2,000. I shut the laptop and sat in stunned silence. The daughter I thought I knew had been living a double life right under my nose. Drinking, possibly using drugs, dating an older boy with a troubling social media presence, skipping school, stealing from me, and planning to use our home for a party that could end in disaster. The pain of her words the night before, "You're not my real mother," took on new significance. This wasn't just a momentary outburst in a heated argument. It was a reflection of a deeper disconnect, a wall she had built between us, perhaps justifying her deceptions by telling herself I wasn't her real parent, that my rules and concerns didn't matter. I felt like a complete failure. How had I missed the signs? How had she become so adept at hiding these things from me? And more importantly, what was I going to do now? The easy route would be to confront her with everything I'd discovered, to unleash my hurt and anger, to ground her indefinitely and pile on punishments. But I knew that approach would only push her further away, perhaps dangerously so. No, this required a different strategy. I needed to be smart, calm, and strategic. I needed to protect my daughter from the path she was heading down, even if she hated me for it in the short term. Because that's what real mothers do, regardless of biology. They do whatever it takes to save their children, especially from themselves. I picked up my phone and began making calls. The first was to Westlake Academy to schedule an immediate meeting with the principal and guidance counselor. The second was to my office, extending my time off for a family emergency. The third was to cancel my business trip for the following weekend. Then I sat down at the kitchen table with a notepad and began to formulate a plan. By the time Amanda came home from school, I would be ready. The hours after my discoveries were a blur of phone calls, research, and careful planning. I wasn't going to rush into this confrontation unprepared. My first call to Westlake Academy connected me with Amanda's guidance counselor, Mrs. Winters, who seemed relieved to finally speak with me. "Ms. Carter, I've been trying to reach you for weeks," she said, confirming my suspicion that Amanda had intercepted their communications. "I'm concerned about Amanda's academic standing and her pattern of absences. I've just discovered she's been hiding school notices from me." I explained, embarrassment coloring my voice. I had no idea things had gotten this bad. Mrs. Winters was sympathetic but direct. "Amanda is at risk of academic probation. She's missed 12 days of school in the past 2 months, most unexcused. Her grades have dropped from A's and B's to D's and F's in most subjects. and there have been some behavioral concerns as well. What kind of behavioral concerns? I asked, dreading the answer. She was caught using her phone to cheat on a test last week, and a teacher reported smelling alcohol on her breath during morning classes twice this month. Each revelation was another blow. Mrs. Winters and I scheduled a meeting for Monday morning to discuss intervention options, including the possibility of transferring Amanda to a more structured academic program for at-risk students. My next call was to Dr. Reynolds, a family therapist I had seen briefly after my divorce years ago. I explained the situation, and she agreed to see Amanda and me together, as well as offering individual sessions. Adolescent rebellion can take many forms, she told me, but when it involves substance use, academic decline, and identity issues related to adoption, a professional intervention is appropriate. You're doing the right thing by acting quickly. I also reached out to several parents of Amanda's old friends, the ones I knew and trusted from before high school. Through these conversations, I learned more disturbing information. Amanda had been telling me she was spending nights at Jenna's house, but Jenna's mother revealed they hadn't had Amanda over in months. Similarly, other parents confirmed they hadn't seen Amanda at events where she claimed to be. My most difficult call was to the local police department's community outreach officer. I didn't want to report Amanda, but I needed information about this Jake person she was involved with. Officer Martinez was discreet and helpful. Without a last name, I can't check specific records, he explained. But I can tell you that underage drinking parties are a major concern in that area near the community college. We've had several calls involving drugs, alcohol, and even reports of date rape drugs at these gatherings. His words sent chills down my spine. I thought about Amanda at one of these parties, about the danger she was putting herself in. The officer provided resources on recognizing signs of substance abuse and information on local youth intervention programs. Armed with this information, I created a multi-part plan. First, immediate intervention to ensure Amanda's safety. This meant removing access to her car phone and computer, cutting off her ability to connect with negative influences. Second, academic intervention through the school to get her back on track. Third, therapeutic support to address the underlying issues, particularly around her adoption identity. Fourth, rebuilding trust and our relationship through clear boundaries and open communication. I knew Amanda would resist. She would be furious about my discoveries and the consequences I planned to implement. But I wasn't going to back down. This wasn't about being her friend. It was about being her mother, her real mother, regardless of what she believed in her anger. By 3 o'clock, I had gathered all the evidence in a folder, written out my plan, and prepared myself emotionally for the confrontation to come. I heard Amanda's key in the front door and took a deep breath. This would be one of the hardest conversations of my life, but I was ready. Amanda walked into the kitchen, stopping short when she saw me sitting at the table. "Why aren't you at work?" she asked, immediately suspicious. "We need to talk," I said calmly. "Sit down, please." "I have homework," she said, turning toward the stairs. "Amanda, sit down now." My tone left no room for argument. She rolled her eyes but dropped her backpack and slumped into a chair across from me. "What?" I slid the folder toward her. "I know everything." "What are you talking about?" she said, but I could see the flash of panic in her eyes. "I know about the failing grades and missed school days. I know about Jake. I know about the drinking and the drugs. I know about the party you were planning for this weekend. I know about my stolen credit card. I know you've been lying to me about where you're staying overnight." Her face went through a rapid series of emotions: shock, anger, fear, and finally, defiance. "You went through my stuff. You had no right. That's my private property." "I had every right," I said firmly. "I'm your mother, and you're a minor living in my home. More importantly, you're engaged in illegal and dangerous activities that put your future and your safety at risk. You invaded my privacy. I can't believe you would do that." She was shouting now, trying to flip the script and make me the villain. "What I can't believe," I said, keeping my voice steady, "is that my 16-year-old daughter is drinking, possibly using drugs, dating a 19-year-old dropout, stealing from me, failing school, and planning to turn our home into a party house while I'm away." Amanda crossed her arms. "It's not that big a deal. Everyone does this stuff." "No, they don't. And even if they did, it wouldn't make it okay." "Amanda, do you have any idea the danger you're putting yourself in?" Do you know how many teenagers end up in accidents, assaults, or worse because of the exact behaviors you're engaging in? You're so dramatic, she said, but I could see uncertainty creeping into her expression. I opened the folder and laid out the evidence piece by piece: the school notices, the social media screenshots, the credit card statements. With each item, her defiance faltered a little more. Here's what's going to happen, I said when I had finished. First, your car privileges are revoked indefinitely. I'll be driving you to and from school. Second, I'm taking your phone and laptop. You can use the family computer in the living room for homework with supervision. Third, you're not going anywhere social until further notice. Fourth, we have a meeting at school on Monday morning to discuss your academic situation. Fifth, we both start seeing Dr. Reynolds for therapy together and separately. You can't do this, Amanda exploded. You can't just control my entire life. I'm not a prisoner. I'm not trying to control your life. I'm trying to save it, I said. And yes, I absolutely can and will do all of these things because I am your mother and you are my responsibility. You're not my mother, she screamed, tears streaming down her face now. My real mother wouldn't treat me like this. I hate you. I wish you'd never adopted me. The words hurt just as they had the night before, but this time I was prepared. I am your real mother in every way that matters. I've loved you, cared for you, and raised you for 16 years. And right now I'm doing what a real mother does, making the hard choices to protect you even when you hate me for it. I'll run away, she threatened. I'll go live with Jake, or I'll call child services and tell them you're abusing me. You're free to call child services, I said calmly. I have nothing to hide. As for running away, I think we both know that would be a dangerous choice. Jake isn't going to take care of you, Amanda. He's using you, and based on what I've seen today, I'd be within my rights to report him for contributing to the delinquency of a minor, possibly worse. Her face crumpled at that, and for a moment I saw fear replace the anger. You wouldn't. I don't want to, I said honestly. I want to help you get back on track without involving the authorities. But make no mistake, I will do whatever it takes to keep you safe, even if that means making difficult choices. Amanda stood up so violently her chair tipped over. I hate you. You've ruined everything. You're not my mother. You're my jailer. She stormed out of the kitchen and up the stairs. I heard her bedroom door slam, followed by the sound of things being thrown. I sat at the kitchen table, emotionally drained but resolved. This was just the beginning of what would likely be a difficult few weeks or even months. But I had done what needed to be done. I had drawn the line and made it clear that I wasn't going to stand by while Amanda self-destructed. Over the next 3 days, our house became a battleground. Amanda refused to speak to me except to hurl accusations and insults. She skipped meals, blasted music from her room, and slammed doors. When I drove her to school on Monday, she sat in stony silence, exited the car without a word, and stalked into the building as if she were walking to her execution. The meeting with the school administrators was challenging but productive. They outlined a structured academic recovery plan that included daily progress reports, mandatory study hall, and regular check-ins with the guidance counselor. They were also clear about the consequences if Amanda continued on her current path: potential academic probation or even expulsion. By the third day, Amanda had lost not only her car privileges and her phone, but also her place in the regular academic program at Westlake. She would be joining a specialized program for students who needed additional structure and supervision. It wasn't a punishment, I explained to her, but a chance to get the support she needed to get back on track. You've ruined my life, she said flatly that evening, the first words she had spoken to me directly in days. None of my friends will want to hang out with me now. I'm a total loser. If your friends only want to be with you when you're partying, drinking, and getting into trouble, they're not real friends. I told her, real friends support you in making good choices. She just rolled her eyes and went back to her room. I was exhausted, heartsick, and beginning to wonder if I had made the right choices. But then I remembered what was at stake: Amanda's safety, her future, her very life. And I knew I couldn't back down, not when the consequences of inaction were so dire. That night, I sat outside her bedroom door listening to her quiet sobs. It took every ounce of willpower not to go in to comfort her, to try to make it all better. But sometimes the hardest part of being a parent is allowing your child to experience the natural consequences of their actions. It's only through those difficult lessons that true growth happens. And so I waited, hoping that somehow through all the pain and anger, my daughter would find her way back to me. On the fourth day of our standoff, something shifted. I woke early as usual and was sitting at the kitchen table with my coffee when I heard movement upstairs. It was Saturday, and normally Amanda would sleep until noon if allowed. But at just past 7, I heard her bedroom door open and her footsteps on the stairs. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, eyes red and puffy from crying hair uncombed, wearing the same sweatshirt and leggings she'd had on the day before. She looked young and vulnerable in a way I hadn't seen in years. "Hi," she said quietly. "Good morning," I replied, trying to keep my voice neutral. "Would you like some breakfast?" She nodded and slid into a chair at the table while I prepared toast and scrambled eggs, her favorite breakfast from childhood. I placed the food in front of her along with a glass of orange juice, then sat down across from her, giving her space, but making it clear I was available to talk. For several minutes, we sat in silence as she picked at her food. Then, without warning, she burst into tears. "I'm sorry," she sobbed, the words coming out between gasps. "I didn't mean it when I said you weren't my real mom. I was just so angry and I wanted to hurt you. I'm so sorry." The dam broke and suddenly words were pouring out of her. How she had felt different from her wealthy classmates at Westlake. How she had been bullied subtly for her clothes, her car where we lived. How she had met Jake at a party she wasn't supposed to attend, and how he had made her feel special, sophisticated, grown up. How the drinking had started as just a way to fit in, but had become something she looked forward to, a way to escape her insecurities and doubts. "I felt like I had to be someone else to be accepted," she admitted. "The real me wasn't good enough." I listened without interrupting, giving her the space to unburden herself. When she finally fell silent, I moved to her side of the table and took her hands in mine. "Thank you for telling me all of this," I said gently. "I wish you had come to me sooner, but I understand why it was hard. Growing up is complicated, and finding your place in the world isn't easy for anyone. Add in the questions that come with being adopted, and it's even more challenging." Amanda looked up at me, her eyes still wet with tears. "I started looking for information about my birth mother online," she confessed. "I found some stuff and it made me feel weird, like I didn't know who I really was anymore. I thought maybe if I found her, I would understand myself better." My heart ached at this revelation, but I had always known this day might come. "That's completely natural," I assured her. "Wanting to know about your biological roots doesn't diminish our relationship. If finding your birth mother is important to you, I'll help you when the time is right. But right now, we need to focus on getting you healthy and back on track." "Am I in trouble with the law?" she asked, her voice small. "For the credit card and the drinking and stuff?" "No," I said. "I haven't involved the police and I don't plan to, as long as this behavior stops immediately. But there are still consequences for your actions, and we have a lot of work to do to rebuild trust." We spent the next few hours talking more openly than we had in months, maybe years. I shared my own insecurities as a single adoptive mother, my fears of not being enough for her, my struggle to find the right balance between protection and independence. "I've made mistakes too," I admitted. "I should have recognized sooner that you were struggling. I should have made sure we kept talking. Really talking, not just about day-to-day stuff, but about the big questions and challenges you were facing." Together, we drafted a plan forward. Amanda agreed to attend individual and family therapy sessions. She committed to the academic recovery program at school and accepted the continued restrictions on her phone, computer, and car privileges, though we established a timeline for earning these things back based on demonstrated responsibility. "What about Jake?" she asked hesitantly. "He keeps trying to contact me through friends." "Jake is 19 legally, an adult, and you're 16, I said firmly. "At minimum, your relationship with him needs to end until you're of legal age. Beyond that, from what I've seen, he's involved in activities that are harmful and illegal. He's not someone who supports your best interests." To my surprise, Amanda nodded. "I know," she said quietly. "He didn't really care about me. He just liked that I would do whatever he wanted to fit in." It was a mature insight, a glimpse of the thoughtful young woman beneath the rebellious teenager. In that moment, I felt a spark of hope that had been missing for too long. As we cleared the breakfast dishes together, Amanda paused. "Mom," she said, "I do think of you as my real mother. Always have, even when I said that horrible thing. You're the one who's always been there for me, who loves me no matter what. I was just so confused and angry and trying to figure out who I am. I pulled her into a hug, feeling her thin shoulders shake as she cried again, but these were different tears cleansing rather than angry. I know, sweetheart, I whispered, and I will always be your mother in all the ways that truly matter. That conversation marked the beginning of our healing process, though it wasn't an instant fix. There were still difficult days ahead, setbacks and arguments, moments of doubt and frustration. The road back to trust is never quick or easy. But that morning, we took the first crucial step together, choosing honesty over deception, connection over distance, and love over anger. The following 6 months were challenging but transformative for both of us. Like the changing seasons outside our windows, our relationship underwent a gradual but profound renewal. Amanda's transition to the structured academic program was rough at first. She resented the daily progress reports and close supervision. But as weeks passed, I watched her begin to respond to the clear expectations and consistent feedback. Her grades improved slowly but steadily. The teachers in the program experienced with struggling teens knew how to challenge her intellectually while providing the structure she needed. Ms. Henderson says I have a real talent for analytical writing. Amanda told me one evening, showing me an essay that had earned high marks. The pride in her voice was unmistakable, a sound I hadn't heard in too long. Our therapy sessions with Dr. Reynolds were equally challenging. In individual sessions, I worked through my fears of inadequacy as an adoptive parent, my tendency to either overprotect or give in too easily, and my struggle to maintain appropriate boundaries while respecting Amanda's growing independence. Amanda's individual sessions were private, but she occasionally shared insights. Dr. Reynolds says my identity questions are normal for adoptees my age, she told me after one session. She says it's like putting together a puzzle where you have most of the pieces, but not all of them. Our family sessions could be emotionally exhausting. We unpacked years of miscommunication, unspoken expectations, and hidden resentments. There were tears-raised voices, painful admissions. But there was also growing understanding, forgiveness, and a slowly rebuilding trust. You both have work to do, Dr. Reynolds told us frankly. Suzanne, you need to find ways to give Amanda appropriate independence while maintaining necessary boundaries. Amanda, you need to earn back trust through consistent honesty and responsible choices. At home, we established new routines. Amanda gradually earned back privileges like limited phone access for homework and staying in touch with approved friends. We agreed on a timeline for potentially returning to regular classes the following semester if her progress continued. The car remained off limits, but I made an effort to ensure she could participate in positive social activities, often driving her myself. Most importantly, we committed to honest communication. We instituted weekly check-ins where we could each share concerns, ask questions, and acknowledge progress without judgment or defensiveness. Sometimes these conversations were awkward or uncomfortable, but we pushed through the discomfort, knowing it was the only path forward. I miss some of my old friends, Amanda admitted during one of these talks 3 months into our new arrangement. Which ones specifically, Bethlehem? I asked, careful to remain neutral. Zach and Taylor, she said, naming 2 of the wealthier students I remembered from before. They weren't actually bad influences. They don't drink or do drugs. I just pretended to fit in with the other crowd. After careful consideration and checking with their parents, I allowed Amanda to reconnect with these friends in supervised settings. Watching her interact with them, I saw a different Amanda than the one who had been trying so desperately to impress the party crowd. She was more authentic, more confident in being herself. Amanda also developed new interests that surprised me. She volunteered at the local animal shelter on weekends, finding purpose in caring for abandoned cats and dogs. They know what it's like to not know where you came from, she told me, but they still have so much love to give. She joined a creative writing club at the community center, channeling her emotions and experiences into poetry and short stories. Some of her work was raw and painful to read, but it was honest and powerful. I watched my daughter finding her voice not through rebellion or conformity, but through authentic self-expression. As for the subject of her adoption, we approached it with new openness. I shared all the information I had about her birth mother, the limited details provided through the closed adoption process. I showed her the few items I had kept, including a brief letter explaining the difficult decision to place Amanda for adoption. She was 19, Amanda said quietly, reading the letter, the same age as Jake. Yes, I agreed. too young and unprepared to raise a child on her own. She wanted you to have opportunities she couldn't provide. Do you think I could find her someday? When you're 18, you can initiate a search through the adoption agency if you want to. I'll support you completely if that's what you choose to do. Amanda thought about this for a long time. I'm not sure if I want to yet, but thank you for not being afraid to talk about it. By the 6-month mark, our lives had found a new rhythm. Not perfect, not without occasional conflicts, but healthier and more honest than before. Amanda was earning solid B's in her classes and had been recommended to return to the regular academic program for her junior year. She had a small circle of supportive friends, both old and new. She was developing interests and talents that reflected her true self, not a persona created to impress others. As for me, I had learned to listen more and react less, to distinguish between normal teenage development and warning signs of trouble, to provide guidance without control, to trust the foundation I had built with my daughter over 16 years, even when it seemed to be crumbling. One evening in early spring, Amanda and I were cooking dinner together, something that had become a Friday night tradition. As she chopped vegetables, she looked up at me with an expression of thoughtful seriousness. "Mom, do you remember what I said that night about you not being my real mother?" I nodded, the pain of that memory still present but no longer raw. "I've been thinking a lot about what makes someone real," she continued. "And I realized that the most real thing in my life has been your love. Not because we share DNA, but because you chose me. You wanted me. You stayed even when it was hard." Her voice broke slightly in, "Especially when it was hard." I put down the spoon I was holding and drew her into an embrace. "Being your mother has been the greatest privilege of my life." I told her, my own voice thick with emotion. "Biology makes someone a birth parent, but love and presence make someone a mother. And I have loved you every single day since the moment I first held you." As we stood there in our kitchen, the same space where months ago we had hurled hurtful words at each other, I felt the full circle of our journey. We had faced a crisis that could have broken us apart permanently. Instead, it had ultimately brought us closer, forced us to confront difficult truths, and helped us build a stronger, more authentic relationship. Real motherhood, I realized, isn't defined by how a child comes into your life. It's defined by choosing to love that child every day, through celebrations and crises, through connection and conflict, through growth and change. It's defined by the courage to make difficult choices for their well-being, even when they hate you for it. And sometimes it's defined by the wisdom to know when to hold tight and when to let go. Amanda is 17 now, preparing college applications, thinking about her future. Our relationship continues to evolve as she moves toward adulthood. There are still challenges, still moments when we struggle to understand each other. But underneath it all is a foundation of love and trust that I believe will sustain us through whatever comes next. Sometimes the most painful words can lead to the most profound healing, and sometimes it takes almost losing something precious to truly understand its value. For any parent listening who has heard those devastating words, "You're not my real mother," or "You're not my real father," know this. Real parenthood isn't defined by biology. It's defined by showing up day after day with love, guidance, and unwavering commitment to your child's well-being. It's messy and imperfect and sometimes heartbreaking, but it's also the most real thing you will ever experience. Have you ever faced a moment where your child's words cut straight to your heart? How did you respond? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Remember, we're all in this parenting journey together, learning and growing alongside our children, whether they came to us through birth or through the equally miraculous path of adoption.